Hi, Iffy. It's great to be joined by you today. I'm really looking forward to hearing some of your reflections on Black History Month because I know this is a month that means a lot to you and you'd like to share some of your reflections with us. So over to you.
No, thanks for having me. I mean, it's a pleasure to be speaking to you and to anyone else who's listening to this or watching. But yeah, obviously for very obvious reasons, Black History Month is very important to me. Um, but I found that it's I have a bit of a, well, not so much unique, but I have a different view on Black History Month from what seems to be the mainstream idea because Black History Month was. Hmm, I'll start with this. I've not had a conventional experience with racism as a black person. Growing up in Nigeria, growing up in Africa, surrounded by black people, racism wasn't something that I was as acutely aware of as I am now living in the UK. Um, it was something that got introduced to me on from TV and on the news and in like mainstream media, that sort of thing, and then experiencing it for the first times when I first arrived here was a bit strange because for most of it I didn't really realize that was what was happening and there's still many instances where I'm not sure till today if that was the case or wasn't, that sort of thing. So when Black History Month became a thing and it's like okay, it's to obviously encourage diversity, inclusivity, and with focus on like black people. Uh, I guess the thing that sort of struck me as being different was what it means to be black. It seems the mainstream narrative seems to come from a place of a black person being exposed to non-black like society, that sort of thing, and discrimination might occur there. As I said, obviously that didn't happen for me, or not for a while. So it gets me thinking what it's like for others like me, and whether I'm, uh, I know I'm represented as a black person, but am I represented as an African who grew up in Africa, and a lot of the sort of interpretations of how Black History Month is viewed. So for me, Black History Month, obviously Black history isn't just. It's easy to point to Black history as a lot of the history for Black people in the West, in the US and UK, and that sort of thing, first world countries. But for me, Black History Month also obviously needs to reflect the experiences of people from Africa as well, from back home, that sort of thing. And that's the bit where my sort of disillusions, if you want to call it, with Black History Month as a whole come in. But and it's not the idea of Black History Month. It's just I say the execution, and my head's sort of in two minds because obviously it's something that should be a positive for me, and then on the other hand, I can see a lot of flaws in it. But I think what gives me hope is it's not a case of it's flawed in its entirety, not even close. But it's a necessary for like it's a necessary step in the right direction. And to be honest, it's obviously gotten better with time, and people are becoming much more aware of the what's how important diversity and inclusivity is, regardless of whether it's for race or ability, gender, whatever the case may be. Um, but I think it's important to recognize that it is still a journey. We should be aiming to get to a place where Black History Month isn't necessary because there isn't that need to raise that awareness because it's just there. I don't know if that's somewhere that can be reached by the simple fact of if you aren't a black person, then you will not have a black experience. So there will always be some level of awareness that's needed to be spread, and the same goes for anything that anything that's exclusive to any one group, that sort of thing. But it is important to not as much as we pat ourselves on the back for getting this far to even have a Black History Month, which obviously years ago would have been unheard of in some circles. We should also remember there's still quite a long way to go. It's very encouraging seeing the changes, the conversations, the evolution of how we celebrate Black History Month over the years, and even just my time in the UK in the last decade plus, it's been really interesting seeing the things that are coming up. And Black History Month for a long time for me was just being made aware of the Black experience in the US, and then it became outside the US, but still in Western countries. But now there's a lot of actually seeing Africa in Black History Month. I'm not just seeing Africa like in terms of motifs or designs in the background, actually reflecting the African experience. But yeah, that's sort of where I sit on Black History Month. It's an amazing thing, but it can be better.
Thanks, Ife. And I think there's lots of conversations around whether Black History Month should just be 1 month, as you've already said, or actually it should be far more. So I think we've got the whole Black History Month 365. So really thinking about the impact of Black history and the contributions that Black people make throughout the year, and them not just being relegated to a month. And I think some of the reflections that you share really fit in with that, and also thinking about the broader experience. So as you said, thinking about the African experiences as well. And again, Africa is a huge continent, isn't it? So we say Africa, but actually the different cultures and the different experiences within each of those countries within Africa is also really vast. So being able to engage with and immerse yourself in the different experiences and the different cultures feels really important throughout the year and not just within 1 month. But 100% agree that it does feel really important to think about particular experiences for people and raise that awareness where we recognize that it doesn't exist. So this year's theme then is proud to be. So have you got any reflections on what you're proud to be?
Well, straight away, from touching back into what I've said about Black History Month, I'm proud to be African. I'm proud to be Nigerian. And again, it's how I see myself depicted in mainstream media or by the rest or to the rest of society comes into that, because I'm reminded a lot of things that maybe I shouldn't be proud of. Directly speaking, what Nigeria is known for or has a reputation for, like fraud, or has had a reputation for fraud, and every now and then it pops up again and just kind of just makes me shudder a little and think that's not the Nigeria I grew up in. I mean, yes, it happens, but for some reason that's just stuck, that sort of thing. But I know there's a lot of things I'm proud of about being Nigerian, and I could go into so much. I mean, the things like the food, music, and the culture only touch the surface. A lot of the morals and things I've learned about being a man and growing up in society, growing up in this world, my level of adaptability, coming to the UK and fitting in as well as I have, and still being self-aware to understand that, like, it's not perfect. I still need to work on myself as much as I can. Being open to accepting others as well, that sort of thing. I learned all of that back when I was in Nigeria. I moved here when I was 17. So I'll say, especially with relevance to Black History Month, for me, yeah, I'm most proud to be Nigerian.
That's great to hear, and thanks for sharing those reflections. And what about people who inspire you?
My biggest inspiration by a mile is my dad. Um, I always have to remind myself that I was very lucky to have someone like him as my dad. I grew up in a very loving family with strong role models in both my parents and my father in particular. he so he worked a lot. So as much as we did spend a lot of time together, he passed away when I was 18, and that meant I didn't really get much time to. I didn't go through that phase of being able to like have discussions with him and talk to him properly. I went to boarding school, so a lot of my teenage years were not at home, that sort of thing. But what it also did on the flip side was it almost kept him as this ideal idea of what I could become. And I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot from things I saw him do, the effect he had on people. Such a very kind and generous man who's he did a lot of work for charity and not for charities, but actually just giving back to the community directly to people he knew, people he didn't. We did a lot of inspirational things about his life. Basically, I've modeled myself around what I want to be, and then it's been very interesting in more recent years then finding out more about the man, like from my mom and having conversations with her, that we've finally been able to open up and talk about things that I wouldn't have realized as a kid growing up, and understanding that yes, he did have his flaws, like any human being does, but it humanized him a lot more for me and made him even more relatable. So everything great about him that I aspired to be became a lot more attainable. It didn't seem like, oh, that he did it because he was this god or anything. He was a man who did his best, and that's all any of us can do, really. So yeah, he's definitely my number one role model.
Oh, that's really, really nice to hear. And I think, yeah, some of the reflections that you made about kind of the flaws that we all have, and kind of always trying to strive to be more. And I know that's something that you really try to do, and I know that you inspire a lot of people as well, Iffy. So really great to be able to have this conversation with you. So before we end, any final reflections?
Um, well, I'd like to say the idea of Black History Month itself comes from a place of being accepting just in general. And I think that starts from empathy. Um, we need to be able to obviously put ourselves in other shoes, but in order to do that, you need to be able to know what other people's shoes are like. You can't put yourself in someone's shoes if you don't know what size the shoes are, what fitting they are, what type of shoes they are. So, in terms of um, being able to have that empathy, being able to be more inclusive, being able to find out what it is that people are proud about, or what they have to be proud about. I think I would like more people to put an effort into educating themselves, not just in terms of what they can find for themselves by themselves, but find out from the people you're trying to learn about as well. So increasing dialogue, conversation, but yeah, let's try and educate ourselves into the experiences of others. And yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Iffy. And yeah, I absolutely agree that that cultural exchange with somebody else is one of the best ways to be able to learn and connect. So absolutely. So I think final thoughts from me and Iffy is go and connect with somebody else, do that cultural exchange, and let's learn how to unite. And just a final reflection from one of my colleagues, Claudia, who always says, "We are one." And I think that's really important for us to remember as we continue to learn and grow. So thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks for joining me, Iffy.
Thanks a lot for
Bye,
me, Nina.
everyone.